Okay, let us begin. We are 2 minutes over, and one thing I hate most out of a lot of things is cons that get off track. Okay, this talk is called Sock It To Me. This is about SOC II attestations. My name is Sean Jackson. On Twitter, my handle is Tarkus. If you're doing InfoSec and you are not on Twitter, you're doing it wrong. Who here has a SOC II attestation already? 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. Who has one coming up? 1, 2, 3. Who thinks they should have one? Everyone should raise your hand. Okay, starting out a little bit about me. I'm a senior security engineer at Solution Reach. We're a company that does patient messaging. If you make an appointment with your doctor, we send you the text message to remind you. I also own my own company, Alliance Information Security, where I do consulting. I do pen testing, where I'll help you write your policies, or I'll help you get ready for your SOC audit. But I won't do the audit. I'll tell you why in a little bit. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I play piano. I play the organ. I play the bass. I have 8 didgeridoos, and I like to cook food. And I feel like I'm enough of an authority. I've experienced enough imposter syndrome. I could probably write a book on it, but I don't think anyone would want to read it because it wouldn't be very good, because imposter syndrome, right? Okay. We're going to talk about certificates, and these are not your certificates. This is not your GPEN, your GCIH, your CISP, your CEH, your OSCP. It's not your certificate. It's certificates for your enterprise. Why do we get certs for ourselves? They give us more credibility. Why do you get a cert for your enterprise? More credibility. We'll talk about SOC attestations, what they cover, what trust service principles are covered in different SOC attestations, the details of what needs to be covered, and why we should do this, and my favorite part, how to deal with security questionnaires. How many of you guys have to fill out security questionnaires? Those are the worst. And does anyone ever read them? No, actually. I had one customer last week contact us. They actually did read it, and it generated more questions. And I was excited by that. I liked that they read that. Other certifications. Hopefully this text is not too small. I was thinking about it on the way in. It's too small. ISO 27001, 2013. That's from the International Standards Organization. This is a global certificate. And this is all about your information security management system. This is really your marching orders of how to do security. The way they check it is a process model. It's not really a binary yes or no. There's also NIST 853. That is from the National Institute of Standards and Technology. So it is government. Okay, let's back up. This is a security framework, and this is control compliance based. It's a bunch of checkboxes, yes or no. Are you doing it? It's not how are you doing it, but are you doing it? And then I'm in healthcare. I don't know if anyone else is here, but HITRUST is for healthcare, and that is a kind of a hybrid of things. They're difficult and they cost a lot. SOC II has about 80 to 100 controls, depending on your organization and how you accomplish the things. HITRUST has about 400. Those 400 are checked against 5 levels of maturity. So that means your auditor has roughly 2,000 points to audit. That takes a lot of time and it costs a lot of money. HITRUST is actually like a hybrid of, this keeps turning off and back on, weird. It's like ISO 27001 mixed with NIST, kind of a hybrid. And it gets its name from Health Information Trust Alliance. All right, but we're talking about SOCs. Different kinds of SOC reports. There's a SOC 1, and that is what is going on? Like, it's all dead. I see dead screen, I see dead screen. And I have a spinning beach ball. All right, we'll ad lib. The SOC 1 is all about financial. It is System and Organization Controls for Service Organizations, ICFR, which stands for Internal Control over Financial Reporting. This is not something that most of us are going to deal with. It's financial reporting. So think of your bank and think of someone who's doing finances, maybe your accounting department, but not us. And I'm going to unplug that so I can get my mouse back. Try again. Oh, look, I see it over there. I apologize. Technical stuff is the worst to go sideways in a talk. Try again. If anyone's live hacking me, that's awesome. You see it? Did Pope do something to this cable? We could talk about hacking speakers. I rebooted because it was dead. Like Pope's done something. You're kind of showing your hand when you have a talk about it. Right? You're gonna borrow my cable. You guys know that Pope, the guy who does AV, he's got to talk about hacking speakers by giving them cables? Good honk, this is so far back. Okay, let's go again. Okay, the SOC 2. System and Organization Controls for Service Organizations Trust Services Criteria. This is our bread and butter. This is what we do in our day jobs, right? Anyone here is not information security? Okay, this is our bread and butter. Also, there's a new one called SOC 3. And what's that? This is System and Organization Control for Service Organizations Trust Services Criteria for General Use Report. I think of this as like SOC 2 Junior. I think this is just another product where they're trying to make money. I don't see the value of this when you have a SOC 2, a real SOC 2. There's different types of SOC 2s. There's a SOC 2 Type 1, which means an auditor comes in and looks at your stuff and says, For everything I looked at, it's all good. All their ducks are in a row, and it's all secure, and they're good. So here's my stamp of approval. I'm going to give them a type 1. It looked good while I was there. Type 2 is when they go back and they audit all the data for the last year. And they say, not only was it good when I was there, they were good the whole year. So that is really valuable when you're giving your SOC 2 Type 2 to a potential customer or a partner. This says not only did we have it when the auditor was there, but they went back and they checked and we had it every single day the whole time, or most of the days, or we fixed it when they were there. Anyway. Your audit has to be done by a CPA. So most of us are not going to leverage your career into becoming a SOC auditor. It's got to be a CPA who has enough training to ascertain whether your efforts to secure things is good enough. So that some good training there. Can be a CPA, probably has a CISP. So they got some homework to do. It's an attestation, not a certification. There's a difference. With the NIST 853, you're going to get a certification. Yes, you've checked all those boxes. This is a letter that the auditor writes, and this is a letter that you'll give to your customers that says, in their opinion, you're doing a good job securing everything. It's not a checkbox, it's a letter. And so this is not so much a code or a framework, and I'm trying to tie it back to a joke from a movie. It's more like a guideline. Why am I saying it's a guideline? The auditor must remain independent from management responsibilities. They cannot define how you do it. They can only assess that your efforts meet the requirement. So, you may have heard with a SOC audit, you can decide what's going to be tested. It's not so much what's going to be tested, you decide how you're going to secure the things. How are you going to make sure availability is there? How are you going to make sure the privacy is protected? You define how you do it. They see if you're doing enough. Does that make sense? Any questions so far? So the trust service principles that are covered in a SOC audit, they can cover security, they can cover availability, they can do processing integrity, confidentiality, or privacy. But every single one has to have security. So you'll have security and availability, or security and privacy, or security and confidentiality, or security, availability, and privacy, or availability and confidentiality, or all 5. Each one of these is going to add cost to the audit. So my recommendation is get your security, your baseline, and when the right customer asks for the next trust principle, then you add that. And if you have a SOC II Type 2, say you've been audited for 3 years now. You had the Type 1, you had a Type 2, and a Type 2. So you've had your ducks in a row for 3 years now, and then they want to add privacy. That becomes a security Type 2 and privacy Type 1. Next year after that, security and privacy Type 2. Does that make sense? The first time will always be Type 1. Do that for a whole year, then it becomes Type 2. And so eventually, if you're going to add all of them, you could have security, availability, and privacy Type 2, confidentiality Type 1. Next year, they all are Type 2. What's covered? Your SOC, if you're doing just security, and from now on we'll talk just about security, you're going to be covering oversight of the organization, vendor management programs, so vendors are third parties, internal corporate governance, risk management processes, and regulatory oversight. It's pretty high level. Now let's get a little bit deeper, and I'll show you what it is the auditors are looking for. And this is, I hate saying the same things that are on the screen, but with this kind of dry material, there's no way around it. So I'm just going to show you what the auditors are looking at. We'll talk about it. Management and personnel demonstrate a commitment to integrity and ethical values. They're going to check, how are you doing against that? Well, what are they talking about here? How would you confirm or show that management and personnel demonstrate a commitment to integrity and ethical values? Blinky, blinky. Seriously, this one's going up and down, over and over and over and over and over, as long as you know. A background check, right? A background check. Do they have criminal backgrounds? Do they have a problem with substance abuse? Do they have huge outstanding debt? That's what they're looking for. So when the auditor comes in, they're going to say, do you do background checks? Do you repeat them? Is there a vetting process when someone is hired? That's what they're looking for. This is exactly the kind of thing the auditor has to assess. Are you towing the line properly? Management and personnel demonstrate a commitment to integrity and ethical values. The board of directors demonstrates independence from management and exercises oversight of the development and performance of internal control. What does that mean? Well, the board of directors, if there is one, they don't work there. That's not their day job. And there's management structure in the company independent of the board of directors. Management establishes with broad oversight structures, reporting lines, and appropriate authorities and responsibilities in the pursuit of objectives. What does that mean? You've got a CEO, and you have your CFO and your COO, and underneath them they have VPs, underneath them they have managers, under them they have team leads. There's a structure, a hiring, or a reporting structure. So there's different levels, reporting lines. So the auditor is going to say, show me your company organization. Is it broken out enough that responsibilities are broken up, that there's it's not easy to have collusion or problems? Management demonstrates a commitment to attract, develop, and retain competent individuals with objectives. You post on your job listing job requirements and skills needed. And then when people come in, you check that. You do evaluations. Management holds individuals accountable for their internal control responsibilities in the pursuit of objectives. What does that mean? The auditor's going to say, what happens if someone violates a policy? What are the teeth behind the policy? And remember, a policy with no consequences is not a policy. It's an idea. Communication information obtains or generates and uses relevant quality information to support the functioning of internal control. They're going to ask, how do you know that what you're testing for is current? What are the current vulnerabilities? How do you know whether you're vulnerable to something or not? Communicates information internally, including objectives and responsibilities for internal control necessary to support the functioning of internal control. What could that be? They might ask, what's your ticketing system? How do you notify the ops team to go patch something? How do you do security awareness training? How often do you do it? Who's invited? Do they sign something? Communicates with external parties regarding matters affecting the functioning of internal control. They're going to ask, how do you let customers know when you're changing the application? Or to whom do you report a data breach? And how do you do it? How do you communicate with authorities? There's still more, but these are the things that the auditor needs to assess. This is what has to be met. And they don't tell you how to do it. They're going to ask you, how are you doing that? And is that enough? So these are actual things the auditors have to know. So if you're looking at getting a SOC audit, think about these things and how you're doing it in your environment. And if you don't think you're doing it well enough, on Monday when you get back to work, talk about this. We need to improve this before we pay the auditor to come in. Control activities. This is, so the company that I've used, and this is not a sponsorship, but I've used Linford & Company, and they are the best auditors I've ever worked with in my life. They set up a relationship with my organization for 3 years. They're going to do our audits. They did our type 1, they'll do a type 2, another type 2. And I asked them about these control activities. Control activities are your policies, and how you control things. That's policies. So I said, what does this mean? Selects and develops control activities that contribute to the mitigation of risk to the achievement of objectives to acceptable levels. This whole thing is, they call this, they told me, this is the self-licking lollipop. This whole section on control activities. Do you have policies about policies? It's kind of circular logic, but you select and develop control activities. You have policies that determine physical security, access management, inventory, baseline configuration, password complexity, all these different kind of policies you can have. The organization selects and develops internal controls. Selects and develops general control activities over technology to support the achievement of objectives. So you have policies about technology, patching cycles, baseline configuration, wiping stuff, BYOD policies, deploys control activities through policies that establish what is expected and procedures that puts policies into action. The self-licking lollipop. You have policies about policies about policies about policies. Monitoring and systems operations. Entity selects, develops, performs ongoing and or separate evaluations. Do you have a pen test? The entity evaluates and communicates internal control deficiencies in a timely manner to those parties. Again, ticketing. Do you help the dev team fix the app problems? To meet its objectives, entity uses detection and monitoring procedures to identify changes and susceptibilities. Are you doing scanning? Do you have something watching network traffic? Are you looking at logs? If so, what are you using? How are you doing it? Are you doing this appropriately? Are you doing it enough? They monitor system components and operation of those components for anomalies that are indicative of malicious acts. Do you have an IDS? Do you have a firewall? Do you have a SIM? The entity evaluates security events to determine whether they could or have resulted in failure of the entity to meet its objectives. Evaluate security events. So what are you looking at logs with? When there's something in your system, if you're using Security Onion, are you getting emails? If you're using Splunk and you have it configured properly, are you getting text messages when something is critical? Can I see the text message? Good. Check, you've done it. The entity responds to identified security incidents by executing a defined incident response program. Do you have an incident response program? Do you have a team? They identify, develop, and implement activities to recover from identified security incidents. What is your incident management process? Show me your process. Show me your documentation. Then, just getting security. The process for granting, modifying, terminating access to the platform supporting infrastructure. How do you onboard? How do you offboard? Asset inventory. What do you have? Do you know what you have? Access reviews. Who has credentials to get to this, to that, to the other? Password parameters. How long are employees' passwords required to be? How long are customer passwords required to be? Physical security. Maybe this is a big thing, maybe it's not, but what are you doing for physical security? How do you know if you're secure? Data transmission security. Is everything encrypted in transit? Is it at rest? If it's not, why not? Can you justify it? Data encryption at rest, usually. Endpoint security. This is going to be your agents on the box. Do you have something watching the box as an agent-based IDS? Production infrastructure security. How is GitLab secured? Who has access to that? Or who has access to the data center? Hardware and data disposal management. Put in your policy that when something's retired, you wipe it. Who wipes it? Don't know. But they're going to check who's wiping it. At my organization, we had a problem. The IT department wasn't wiping as much as they should have, and we had a machine that was sold to an employee call home for a patch while the auditor was sitting there. Like something popped up and they said, oh, we don't have this device anymore. And I said, You just said that right in front of the auditor. So now the security team has to wipe machines. Removal media policy. This one's tricky because locking down the USB is not really a high priority for people, so you got to justify not having it. And the most painful one. This is the one that at my organization, we've been doing this for 6 months now, and it is still painful. It's hard for the developers to live with. Anyone have an idea what I'm going to talk about? No, not administrator access. Separation of duties. That's right in here. Change management. So, I don't know if any of you guys have heard of continual development. That's a thing, right? When you tell the developers they can't just build it and push it, and they're used to building and pushing, it really gets them unhappy. But what change management is, change is authorized for development. That's one person. Change is peer reviewed. That's another person. One thing I'm missing in there, the change is developed. So authorized, developed, can't be the same person. Peer reviewed, can't be the same person. It's got to be a peer. It could, if you have two developers, and I've consulted with one company, they had two. There's a completely binary system. One guy said, here's my idea, we're going to sketch it out, here's the architecture design. This guy had to go build it. This guy had to review it. Then he went back to testing it. Yeah, okay, so at least binary has to be two people. You cannot do this with a house of only one developer. In real small shops, you might have one developer. If you're going to get your SOC audit, you're going to hire someone because you cannot have one developer. Why? What is this stopping? Malicious code. The one guy who's going to write a back door, so when he gets fired, he can still log in and steal stuff. This is stopping malicious code, or a little more safer, mistakes, bad code, sloppy code, maybe. Truly, it's protecting against malicious code. It's forcing it to be at least collusion. Two guys working together. If you have a larger team at work, I have 50. They pass around the responsibility of checking each other's code. So usually one guy generates the authorization, a couple people will build the code, and then someone else, two people, do the peer review. At my house, we do two. Change is tested. After it's reviewed by two people, it's tested by someone else, not the same person. Change is approved for production. So it's been reviewed, it's been tested, it passes testing, now it's approved. Can't be the same person. If no segregation of duties, so if it's really tight, you need an automated notification to others with responsibility for approving changes. So you do a pull request, and everyone who can do the approval, they get automatic notification. Does that make sense? Not the same person. And change is validated after being implemented. So in a worst case scenario, someone has the ability to roll back code. Not the same person. And this is painful. If all 50 developers I work with are used to just churning through stuff and making it work and getting it online and making it better. And the auditor says you've got to slow down. You have got to put things in place that make it so no one person can get bad code up. It's painful, but it is so necessary because this attestation is going to go to a potential customer and say, we've put things in place that make sure that no bad agent can really take us down or take you down. It's part of being a mature enterprise. Startups, this is the biggest, hardest step to becoming the mature enterprise from being a startup. And this is what I think the big difference is. The biggest difference between a startup and an enterprise is how robust is your change management and separation of duties. And that's a real soapbox, but this is the biggest point of pain in my environment. So, evidence of separate development. Yes, you got to have staging. You have a development environment, staging and testing, and then production. The public sees production, they should not see the other two. That's what's in the SOC. That's what has to be covered. And you're going to have 80 to 100 data points or audible points that say you're doing all those things. Now, the reason I'm giving this talk is because that whole list that I just gave you, I wanted to know what they'd be checking, and I couldn't find anything anywhere that says what the auditor is looking for. And so it was a dark room we were looking into. And I said, we should get our SOC attestation, but I don't know what they're going to ask about. I don't know what they're going to check for. So that's why I said, as soon as we got it done, I said, I'm going to write a talk so everyone else can learn that, because I didn't know what was in that dark room. I'm now shining the light in the room. That's what the auditors need to check for. So from everything we just talked about, if you don't have that at home, on Monday, put this on the agenda. Put this on the list. We need to do better background checks. We need to repeat background checks. We need to have better separation of duties. We need better structure. We need more independence from the board. We need better physical security. We need to wipe machines. We need to have evidence wipe machines. When we give laptops to a third party to dispose of them, we need a receipt to show that it's happening. You need to start creating the, it's not evidence, the word, this is the word that always defies me. When you go to like an architectural dig, artifacts. I forget that word, artifacts. You're creating artifacts in your daily work life that make it possible to be audited, for an auditor to come find those artifacts. You're really putting on the big boy enterprise pants. You're coming from a startup to an enterprise. And that SOC 2 letter given to your customers says, we're software as a service, but we're serious. We're good. We're on solid ground. We've been here for a long time. We're going to be here for a very long time. Work with us. Your data's good with us. Your customers will be very happy you're working with us, because look what we have, a SOC audit. So why do we do these? Well, bam. It's attractive to potential customers. It's a good way to get things in line when you have a slow buy-in or attraction for security initiatives. If you're trying to do separation of duties and you can't get any traction, bring in the SOC auditor. They've approved the budget for the audit. They're going to spend 30 grand, and the auditor says, have they been telling you you need separation of duties and you're not doing it? I'll tell you the same thing. And then they have to do it. It's a good way to force their hand to listen to you. That's the thing. Everything we've been talking about, it's not foreign to us. We all want these things. We want to have things more secure. But we all know how it is at work. If it's going to slow it down, it's going to cost more money, they're not going to do it. Side note. At Hack West, I don't know if you guys know, I'm kind of associated with Hack West. We had a keynote, Dawn Marie Hutchison. She said something in her keynote that I've used in every interview, and I use it all the time. People talk about security slows us down. And she says, why do you put brakes on a car? Slows you down? No. You put brakes on a car so you can go faster. You put brakes on the car so you can go faster, because you have the things in place to slow you down when you need to. If you didn't have brakes, you really wouldn't go very fast at all. We're the brakes. We might slow it down, but that's not why we're here. We're here to make it so the company can go faster, because there's no way to get malicious code up, because there's no way to get a bad actor employed, because there's no way to let someone in the building who's not authorized, right? And if you have your SOC 2, and I would say this is the first certification or attestation you should get for your organization. This is the lowest bar. This is the easiest way into an enterprise environment. You can start building your security packet, which would be your SOC 2 letter. Maybe a sanitized executive summary from your last penetration test. Maybe it's some policies, your security policy, your incident management policy. Maybe it's a sanitized risk assessment of third-party vendors. That's another thing I didn't put in my bullet. You need to do a risk assessment of third-party vendors. Anything your data passes through a third party, you need to get their, you do a risk assessment on them. Quite often they'll send you a SOC report. Hint, hint. Okay, so why do we do these? The questionnaires. At B-Sides Las Vegas this last year, there was a great talk by Katie Ledoux called Escape the Questionnaire Quagmire, a thoughtful approach to addressing security inquiries from customers and prospects. Basically, you put this packet together with your SOC report. If you have it, your ISO report, your NIST report, your HITRUST, whatever certifications you have, with that executive summary from the pen test, with some policies, with the third-party risk assessment. And you take it to your marketing team and you brand it. You give it all one flavor. And that's your security packet. Then when they send you a questionnaire, you say, thank you for this. Go find your answers in that. Right? No questionnaire. You just hand them the packet and tell them, you go find the answers because they're in there. Some bigger customers will insist, no, you answer our questions. Then you go to the salesperson and say, how much are they paying for our services? Can they justify my salary for a month? My salary and the analyst and the IT guy and the head of development? Can they justify all of our salaries for a month? Probably not. So you tell the salesperson, tell them to go back and look in the packet. And if it is big enough, you go, okay, fine, we'll do the questions. Also, this morning, I did a little thing on Twitter where I said I was reviewing my slides, I did a little movie, and I went click, 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 click. And Kat Valentine, she responded. I don't know if you've heard of Kat Valentine. She's a rock star. She wrote a great blog post about SOC 2 basics. And during the keynote, I was flipping through this. It's a really good article. The way you find it, you search medium.com/cat SOC 2. It's a really good blog post about SOC 2 basics. Kind of the same thing I'm talking about, a little more detail. Also, you have her contact information. Kat really knows her stuff with SOC audits. When it's online, go watch this video from Katie Ledoux. It was a great talk, and she does a really good job of articulating what I kind of barreled through. Kat Valentine has a great blog post about this. Are there any questions? What's that? So the question was, is the audit for a type 2 the same as a type 1? Yeah, rather than, so with the type 1, let's say we're talking about onboarding. They would say, show me the people who are onboarded in the last month. Can you show me the background report for sample number 2 and number 5? Or if they're talking about hardware disposal, they said, let me see all the hardware where the ticket changed from an asset to sold. and they'd say, show me that one, and show me that one, and show me that one. When they come next year, they're going to say, show me the list of all the hires, all the separations, all the data disposals, all the push tickets, everything that they check for. Everything is auditable. Show me all of them. And then I'm going to say, give me those 5, give me those 3, give me those 2, give me those 7, give me these ones. They'll look at all those and say that every step along the way, for all 12 months, you did it. So they're not going to check every single one. They'll do a sample from all those and then say, we're comfortable saying you've done this for a whole year. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question? What else? It goes back to the secret sauce. It has to do with whoever's above you, their level of comfort sharing this information about how they secure their things. I think personally, a SOC letter is safe for general consumption. But I would say put it on the home page, on the security page. But my employer doesn't want to do that. So I'm the same boat. They want an NDA. It's understandable. You're going to be sharing some secret sauce. You're going to say basically how you're doing things, how you're securing things, which could create a vector for an attacker to get in. In theory, it makes sense. So for those who are more paranoid, privacy-minded, require the NDA. Yeah. Another question?
Yeah, you said for production, everybody can see that, and for staging, that's for
Yeah.
what if you want to, so does that mean you don't want other people to see it, and it violates the SOC, or what if you want to beta test something, hey, what do you think about this new thing? It's not production yet, but you want to show it to some clients, and that violate the SOC?
I don't think so at all. If you have things in place that still secure it, say your firewall to the staging environment allows a choice IP, whitelist that IP, they're going to want to know, I'm sorry, the question was, we talked about earlier the 3 development environments, the development, staging, and production. And he said, I said production should be only public facing, everything else is private. And he said, what if we want to do a beta test and we offer it to some customers? The auditor, and this is audit speak, they want to know that you've considered all your options. So if you consider it and you say, we're going to whitelist, we're going to punch a hole in the firewall for this little IP that from that one machine or from their location, they can get in to see staging. If you've done adequate protection around that, it wouldn't violate anything. As long as you've considered it and you had a thoughtful approach to it and you did everything you needed to secure it otherwise, you're not going to violate anything. Of course, I'm not the auditor, so I can't, but I would say you'd be safe. If the auditor came in and said, what are you talking about? You give customers access to your staging environment. You say, well, look, here's the access rules in the firewall. They can only come from this IP. They can only hit this IP that we put up just for the beta test. You're fine, I think. Exactly. Code could be up and maybe it hasn't gone through testing yet, or maybe it wasn't done with QA, or the AppSec guy didn't get his hands on it yet, and there's a vulnerability that's live in staging. So that's why you're going to have separate areas. Another question? Nothing. Okay, I apologize. I have ADHD and I still speak fast. I took my med this morning, but I still spoke fast. We've got some extra time. If you want to reach me, again, if you're in InfoSec and not on Twitter, you're doing it wrong. InfoSec happens on Twitter. When Twitter first came out, what we call now luminaries, the first guys who were in InfoSec, they all got on and they said, we like doing this. InfoSec is on Twitter. On Twitter, I'm Tarkus, 74RKU5, because when I came with my handle, I thought I was really cool. And my DMs are open. If you have any questions, you want some suggestions, you want help, you want to know the name of the company I was talking about that I like, Linford, hit me in Twitter, send me a DM, and I'll respond. Thank you very much. Enjoy the con. SAINTCON is a great event, great place to meet new people, find new ideas, new niches to look into, and I hope you have a great time. Thank you.